Have you ever been there? You know, you've got a product, it has passed every single test with flying colors. I mean, it is a work of art in the lab. But then it gets out into the real world and things just start to fall apart. Well, today, we're going to tackle that exact problem, that super frustrating gap between how a product performs in testing versus how it actually holds up in the field.
It passed every test. Then the field happened. Man, that sentence is the stuff of nightmares for engineers and program managers, isn't it? It's such a common story, and it's right there. In that gap between proven reliability and what happens in reality, that's where so many complex programs, especially in high-stakes fields like defense, just run into huge trouble.
Okay, so before we can even think about fixing this problem, we need to be totally clear on what we're talking about. So let's start with the big one. What exactly is operational reliability?
And look, the definition is pretty simple, but it's so important. We are not talking about some theoretical performance under perfect, sterile, controlled conditions. No, we're talking about the real-world results that your customers and your end users are actually experiencing day in and day out. It's the reliability that truly matters.
So now that we've got the concept down, let's try to put some numbers on it. Just how big is this reliability gap we're talking about? How bad is the problem really? So I want you to think about this for a second. For a critical piece of defense equipment, after all the incredibly rigorous testing and qualification, what kind of performance drop would you actually expect to see once it's out there being used for real? The answer is pretty staggering. It's 30 to 40%. Let that sink in. That means the mean time between failures, the MTBF, is 30 to 40% lower in the field than what you carefully measured in the lab. That is a massive, and frankly, a very expensive problem.
Now, here's the part that might surprise you. The root cause? It's almost never a fundamental flaw in the product's design. The engineers probably did a fantastic job. The real problem is the disconnect, the giant chasm between the assumptions you make during testing and the messy, harsh, unpredictable reality of the field.
So, if the design isn't the problem, what is causing this 30 to 40% gap? Well, the source material breaks it down into 4 main culprits, and we're going to call them the operational reliability killers.
All right, here they are. You've got failures caused by maintenance itself. Then there's damage from just operator handling. Third, improper storage. And last but not least, just completely underestimating what the field environment is actually like. Let's grade each one of these killers down.
First up, maintenance-induced failures. Yeah, you heard that right. This is when the people who are trying to keep the equipment running are, accidentally causing the problems. It could be they're using the wrong procedure, or maybe they're doing the right thing but just at the completely wrong time. It just goes to show that the entire life cycle matters, not just when it's being used.
Our second reliability killer is damage from operator handling. And think about this for a second. The product's reliability can be shot before it's even officially turned on for the first time. It can happen during shipping, unboxing, installation. That journey from the factory to the field is an absolute minefield of potential damage.
Next up, we have improper storage. And this is the silent killer. A piece of gear could just be sitting in a warehouse that's way too hot or too cold or way too humid. It's not even being used, but this invisible damage is just building up, slowly eating away at its components and just setting it up for failure down the road.
And finally, the classic mistake, underestimating the field environment. I mean, a lab is perfect, right? It's clean, it's temperature controlled, it's predictable. The real world is not that. It's full of dust, moisture, wild temperature swings, and vibrations you never saw coming. When our test profiles don't account for this harsh reality, we're basically testing for a world that doesn't even exist.
So we know the problem and we've met the 4 killers. The big question now is, how do we fight back? How do we close that 30 to 40% gap? Well, thankfully, there's a really clear 4-step process for getting our testing back in line with reality.
And this is the game plan. First, you have to do your homework. You've got to map the actual environment. Don't guess. Go out and measure the altitude, the real temperature ranges, the vibration. Second, use that data to set your test profiles so they match reality, not just some generic check-the-box minimum standard. Third, build in a buffer. Add an operational margin to your screening to account for all the stuff you can't predict. And finally, you got to close the loop. Track that mean time between failures after it's been deployed to make sure that your changes are actually working.
All right, let's bring this all home. Let's think about what this means for you and how you can actually start putting these really critical ideas into practice. Now, this whole explainer is based on the fantastic work and insights from the team at BE Analytic. For those of you who are serious about closing that gap between your lab and field reliability, well, these are the folks who specialize in calibrating test profiles to real-world conditions. All their info is right there on the screen if you'd like to learn more.
And that leaves us with one final and really important question to think about. It's kind of the big takeaway from all of this. I want you to take a hard look at your own processes and honestly ask yourself, is your testing tough enough for the real world, or are you just testing for the lab? The answer to that question could make all the difference.